My name's Olivia. Welcome to the Crows of Pearblossom. This is the house where I was brought up. My father was Baron de Holville, who was a Dada poet in Belgium. We joined the Exodus, the Second World War. He got ill and he died in the south of France. And my mother married an American and got on the last refugee boat with me, and we arrived to New York in 1940. That is how we came to America. My mother's sister was married to Aldous Huxley. They bought a house for my mother in the desert, close to where they lived. There was a big cottonwood tree here, which was my best friend. This is, I think, what inspired Aldous's story. The crows would fly from our house to the neighbor's house, and they would go into the Yost's cottonwood tree. Once upon a time, there were two crows who had a nest in a cottonwood tree at Pearblossom. In a hole at the bottom of the tree lived a rattlesnake. He was very old and very big, and when he shook his rattles, the noise was so loud that it could be heard by the children at the school in Little Rock. That's where I went to school. Actually, I was very upset when my favorite book, which I had left behind in Liano with Aldous and Maria, was returned to my house, and there was this handwriting in it. And my mother was thrilled. It was Aldous who had written a story for me. But that was my favorite book. Most of the time, he slept, but every afternoon, punctually at 3:30, he used to crawl out of his hole, climb into the tree, and look into the crow's nest. My mother, of course, had a child with her new American husband. This did not sit well with the little Olivia. She didn't go for this very much. And they, out of pity, took me to their home, which is in Liano. Liano is mentioned in this book he wrote for me, and it's his only children's story. One day, Mrs. Crow came home and caught Mr. Snake swallowing her latest egg. I did a lot of daydreaming, sitting on this porch, looking out at these trees. These were the trees that caused all my daydreams while I was away from my family, living with Aldous and Maria. When Mr. Crow came home that evening from Palmdale, he found his wife looking very pale and haggard, pacing up and down the branch outside her nest. This is Aldous's studio here. I was never allowed here. This was off grounds for me. And this is his think tank here. And he's very quiet. Have they ever seen him? He had visitors who would come, like Igor Stravinsky. Of course, Krishnamurti was his very good friend, Igor and Vera. Leaving the gate and walking out here with Aldous and his friend Krishnamurti, Jiddu Krishnamurti, I would come along with him, and we would walk here on this road. We would walk here, and they would talk, and they would talk. And I would say in French, je suis fatigué, je suis fatigué. I'm tired, I'm tired. And then Aldous would sing, je suis fatigué, 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 fatigué. And I thought, he doesn't take me seriously. And they would go on and on. Aldous was very forbidding in his presence because of his immense size, and because of the fact that his eyes were clouded. So when you spoke to the man, you couldn't see what he was looking at. And So it made people very shy, and he had a wonderful way of answering questions. When he did answer them, he would kind of raise his voice into a question. "What's the matter, Amelia?" He said, "You look quite ill." When I think of that dreadful snake, I go all of a tremble. "Snake? Snake?" said Mr. Crow. "What snake?" "The one that ate all my darling little eggs." One of my biggest memories is coming and swimming. For a child, this is enormous. Little steps. Look at that. Is that a swimming pool or what? We had grapes growing, I guess, along the fence. We took the grapes and made wine. And then they had me dressed like Bacchus, the god Bacchus. And we made our wine in something which, to me at the time, that barrel looked as big as this, but of course it wasn't. This is it. God, it hasn't changed at all. Ah, I love you. I love you. My dear tractor, take me to the silo. To the silo. Lana del Rio. There it is. That's the silo. That was the silo. I'd sit in my tractor and just drive towards the silo. Also, we have the site off the road, and the pillars there. Of course, I would always daydream about that place. Mr. Crow shook his head. "This is serious." That's why I shall go and talk to my friend Owl. Owl's a thinker. Aldous was himself burdened with his ability to see the future of the Western world, and it was a very grim one. And that bothered me a lot as a child. But when we went for walks, he would recite limericks to me. So he had a very special way of communicating his humor. So it was very comforting for me that when I was listening to him speak to the elders about his prophecies of doom, that there was some kind of humor that was there and that was present. And that, of course, is represented in the Crows of Pearblossom. And that is why that story was important for me. And Mr. Crow took a seat, and while Old Man Owl shaved and combed his feathers, he told him the whole story. Many have a certain understanding of who Aldous Huxley might have been through the famous Brave New World, but there is a progression in his message. When he wrote the book The Island, he was finally finding some kind of a connection and a transformation of all the possibilities, so that there is a very strong message of peaceful coexistence in his outlook. And unfortunately, a lot of people did not take that book seriously. And I think he meant them to take it very seriously. It was a solution. "Well," said Old Man Owl, "there's obviously only one thing to do." "What's that?" "Wait and see."